Hello and welcome to the Interior Design Podcast. This is episode 3 and today we have got James Lewis coming in from Sunbury Fabrics to educate us about upholstery fabric. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a quick catch up for the week first.
Yeah, see what's been going on.
With just me and Cheryl before we bring James in because I think he's waiting outside, you know. So Cheryl, you've been on holiday.
I've been on holiday for 2 weeks, which was lovely. And now back straight into the thick of it. So I am, currently working on a project in London, which is a salon. So that's exciting. I've done all of the kind of legwork before I went away, draft, general arrangements and stuff, but now I'll kind of get into the nitty gritty of it really. So yeah, I've got that one to sink my teeth in. But what about you?
Oh God, we're so busy. Chinese floating restaurant in Canary Wharf. I'm project managing it. I'm not designing it. They've asked me
all of the plans in Chinese.
Oh my God, all the plans are in Chinese, and we've had to translate them all. And I thought, oh yeah, that'll be easy. I'll just put it through a translation document. Google no, it's not been as easy as that.
No.
So we had to go into CAD and edit every single annotation on probably about 100 drawings.
Wow.
I was like, oh, I wasn't quite.
So that's just project management you're doing on that one, is it?
Yeah, but the other jobs that we're doing some really cool projects in central London at the moment. We've got 3, all owned by one person that are all really cool, high-end places. Mm-hmm. We've got one that's right near Liverpool Street, which has got 5 floors, and they just want to redo the whole thing, called Andrea's. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be like a garden inside on the ground floor, and then it's going to be sort of going up into like this beautiful teal. Oh, that's beautiful.
Amazing.
So I've done all the mood boards, and as you know,
love a mood board.
So I got my favourite bit done. Now I've got to do all the hard work. So yeah, I'm just loads of different things. I'm project managing a little cafe in Lichfield. I've designed it about 2 years ago, and it's still going on.
It's usually the way, isn't it?
Nearly finished, but we're doing listed. It's a listed building, so it's taking ages. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've got a residential in Mersey.
Oh, amazing!
Which is really cool. She's lovely. Belinda.
I just got. So I think I might have mentioned in previous episodes that I was helping out a friend with their extension, and so it's all done and they're officially moved back in. So I popped around there a couple of days ago just to kind of see, to see it kind of in all its glory. Oh,
is it all finished, completely done?
Pretty much.
Oh
Yeah. And they've got, they're starting to put all their furniture back in, and all of their pictures are going back up on the walls, and it just makes it just makes my heart I just feel really proud. I'm just really proud of it, and they love it, and it's just nice. It's so nice when a project takes, that build's been going on for about a year, but the actual project's probably been bubbling for a good couple of years. I've been involved with them. And it's just so nice to get in and see, their stamp on it and all of their stuff going back in, and just how happy they are being in there, using the kitchen, using the space how it was supposed to be used, and it just makes me so happy. It makes me really, really happy.
You should be really proud.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's really cool.
Cool. So we're going to go and get James.
Yes. And let's learn about some upholstery and some Sunbury fabrics. Let's do it. Let's do it.
James.
Hello, Hayley. How are you?
Welcome to the Interior Design Podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be on.
How are you?
I'm good. Disappointed about how wet the summer's been. It's been very depressing. But yeah, I'm good. In my quiet month. August is always quiet for us, so it's a perfect time for me to come along.
Everyone's on holiday, aren't they?
I know, and also the mill shut down. Yeah. All the supplies are closed, so it's a very quiet month for us. So this is a welcome break from the monotony.
That's for sure. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Have you been on holiday this year yet?
Not yet. I'm going in 3 weeks for my first anniversary, to Italy for 3 nights, which will be lovely. Nice. And then it's my dad's 60th, and he's taking us all to Portugal for a week. Oh, wow. All 8 of us.
Thanks, Dad.
With couples. Yeah. First family holiday in a while. So we'll see how that goes. Which will be nice, yeah. But apart from that, no, not yet. Not luxury, not leisure, anyway.
James. Hello.
Hello, Hayley.
What are you going to educate designers about today?
Oh, so about fabrics, I don't really think I should do anything more than fabrics. I don't really know much else about. I know what I sell, which is a good thing.
You work for Sunbury Fabrics?
I work for Sunbury Design, yes.
Sunbury Design.
Sunbury
Did
Design.
it used to be called Sunbury Fabrics?
No, it was called Lewis & Co. Fabrics Limited, which is still our official name.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were called Sunbury Fabrics as well. Lewis & Co. for Sunbury Fabrics. So we started in 1948, I should say. And the building it was in was called Sunbury House, which is why the Sunbury name comes from. And then we switched to Sunbury Design before I worked for the company about 15 years ago.
Have you worked for the company for 15 years?
No, I've worked for the company 7 years.
I was going to say,
yeah. No. You were my first ever call though.
Really?
Did you know that?
No way. I remember.
You were my first ever visit as a customer.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I left wanting to quit now.
That's
when you did your the supplier days. Do you remember?
Yeah,
you did all your
the whole
supplier days. So I had like an hour. Yeah.
That's
I remember it.
But I do remember you ordering me loads of samples. Like, oh, this job's easy. All these designers, they love it, and it's not always that easy. But no, so I worked for 7 years, and yeah, we changed to Sunbury Design about 10-15 years ago because it sounds more in keeping with the market we work in. And we work with the hospitality design industry, so the Sunbury Design part is where it comes from. So yes.
So it's very niche.
What, the fabric world?
Yeah. No, the hospitality
design industry is quite niche. There are lots of different regulations. And something you don't really think about until you work in it. It's you don't really think about the chairs you sit on until you work in that industry, or the curtain in your hotel room, for example, until later, and then all the regulations and all sorts of things.
So you just before you came on, you were saying, I was saying to you, we want to teach interior design or something, and like a little bit like a CPD.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, we don't call it CPD, we call it lunch and learn.
Yeah. So what
I know out there,
I know in the workspace industry, which we don't do loads in, they do use them. They do say use CPDs a lot more.
It's like architectural, really.
Yeah, it's more of an architect, which is why it's got into the workspace environment, because they do a lot of architectural stuff. But in the hospitality side, it's generally lunch and learns. That's what they call it. I guess it's less formal, and it comes over from the States, because in the States they do big things on lunch and learns. They love a lunch and learn out there. Which is, and obviously we follow America, generally.
You pay £500 for lunch.
$500, which is basically 500 quid now, isn't it? So yeah, when I go out to the States and host lunch and learns the big design agencies or big cruise liners who we work with, they have approved suppliers, so you can only work with these suppliers, and it's generally around $500. Yeah.
Jeez.
So
that's cool.
It's cool. It's good fun. It's tiring, but it's very, very good fun.
Do you get out to America much?
I've started since COVID. I didn't really go before COVID. So in the last 18 months, I've gone 4 or 5 times for work. I'm going again in October. Yeah, it's fun. But when you're on your own, not with your family, it can be a bit lonely. But every day's different. At least you're not sitting in an office all day.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is a perk of the job.
Yeah.
It is a perk of the job.
So what are you going to teach interior design
So
about today?
I will talk about the regulations of fabrics. So durability, fire rating you need, those sort of things really. Yeah. Or try and teach.
So over to you, James.
Okay.
To teach us.
So with hospitality fabrics, which is what our bag is in, every upholstery fabric has to be something called Crib 5, which is the fire rating. It ensures that the fabric is durable enough and has a back coating on it that stops the fire from spreading sufficiently, and you need that in a hospitality environment because of when there's kitchens and things like that and more people. So that's the legal requirement for that.
So just to explain, so BS5852 is called cigarette and match.
Cigarette and match, which is domestic. That's domestic. So for domestic fabrics, you only need cigarette and match, but for hospitality, you need Crib 5.
Yeah, so that's two different tests.
Yep, two different tests.
So a cigarette match is a cigarette and a match test in a lab.
Yep.
And then a Crib 5 test is a tiny little wooden crib
doing my job for me. Correct.
Sorry, darling.
No, but excellent. You're just saying it much better than I am. But that's basically what happens. Yeah. So they are two completely different tests. Generally, Crib 5 is obviously higher than cigarette and match, so it is accepted in the domestic world as well. So if your stuff is Crib 5, it can also be used in the domestic environment. But if your stuff is not Crib 5 and it's only cigarette and match, you have to get it treated up to cigarette and match, which is why.
And you need that from a building control perspective, don't you?
Yeah, so
legality.
Yeah, legality. Yeah. I mean, and things have got a lot tighter since Grenfell as well. I mean, we only ever supplied Crib 5 stuff anyway, but I think the industry has got much stricter since then. There's fire officers are much hotter on it, quite rightly, obviously. But yeah, everything we supply is Crib 5 as standard. It's not a mark because it's not worth us. It's quite costly to stock two different types of things. So we can still supply into the domestic market, which is originally what the company used to do. Yeah, we used to do home stuff, but the contract market is our main bag. About 85% of it of our turnover. Yeah. And then rub tests.
Hey.
Yes. Have you got any questions about rub tests before I begin on that?
There's Martindale.
That is Martindale.
Is there another one?
So Martindale is the UK standard, which is basically they put it on a machine and it goes up and down. And
is it not a figure 8?
That is the Wyzenbeek, which is what they use in America. They call them Wyzenbeek. That's the figure of 8. Martindale is the backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards.
And each Martindale stroke is like forwards and back. Is it forwards and back is one rub?
Oh, that's a good question actually. I believe so. Yes. Yes. And it will go with a textured weave. It will fail. The rub test will end when three weaves break. So I mean, don't have a camera here, but if you see our key code book there, that makes 45,000 rubs. And it'll go back and forth, and when 3 go, that is when the fabric has not failed, but that is the end of the rub test. Yeah. With plainer fabrics, it's a little tougher to see. It's when it loses colour, or it starts to there's noticeable signs of wear, which is why plain fabrics generally have a higher rub test than textured fabrics, because there's less risk for the fabric to go wrong on. Yeah. So, but the severe contract minimum use is 40,000 rubs. But generally in our industry, we don't generally sell stuff less than 45,000, and even now it's getting higher and higher and higher. We sell things that are a quarter of a million.
There's product out there that's like 250,000
so
rubs.
We sell three products that are 250,000 rubs.
It's insane, isn't it? I think also that when people think of rub count, I mean, you instantly think of in the design industry, you think of rub count as being when the fabric fails and breaks, but actually, as you just pointed out, with some of the plainer, less heavy weave fabrics, it isn't just about the product failing; it's about loss of colour, the kind of the stretch,
just the wear and tear and things. Basically.
I think it's such an important point, the rub counts on fabrics, because I think a lot of designers maybe don't give it the thought that it actually really needs.
So it is important. I think they can be a bit misleading at times, because stuff can be 40,000 rubs, and that is absolutely fine. It's like more than fine, and it will perform just as well potentially as a quarter of a million rub test. And also, if you're in a hotel or a restaurant, it's getting refurbed. If it's a high volume place, it's getting refurbed fairly regularly. So there's not even enough time for that fabric to even get to the point where it fails.
That's something that needs to be considered when selecting the right fabric for the job, in terms of what that life cycle of the design is, in terms of how long are we talking before potentially there's
where it's being used. If you're using it on a seat pad, that's obviously going to get far more use than a back of a chair. A back of a chair could literally last forever, especially on the outer back. It's never going to get any sort of. It might get, if it's in a restaurant, I guess you might have people like rubbing their hands on it or wiping
when you're pulling out the chair.
Yeah, or maybe a waiter spills a drink over it or something like that. But that's the worst it's ever going to get. Obviously, a seat pad takes a lot more sort of just more durability. More wear. So you've got to consider that, which is why generally designers like yourselves will go for a faux leather on the seat pad and then the decorative on the back.
I quite often use it because a lot of the decorative fabrics you can get are sort of 40,000 rolls,
Yeah.
and actually putting that on the back of a chair is fine, isn't it? And you can get some really cool
designs and
that aren't very high.
Yeah.
So you kind of go, I want to use that, but actually, if I just put it on the back, it'll be fine.
yeah, because it's not getting anything. There's nothing going to happen to it that's going to cause it to fail. Yeah, as I said, the only thing that's going to work, it might get stained, and as long as it's cleaned properly, which is always an issue, then you're not going to have a problem. Yeah, so that's that. The more important thing that's arisen in the last few years is everything we supply nearly now has some sort of stain-resistant finish on them, because of the requirements in the industry. Owners, end users, not even you guys, it's your clients want their stuff to be easy to clean.
Do you know what? I've got a perfect example of that yesterday, and it was one of your fabrics actually.
Oh, excellent.
I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the velvets.
Madison.
Madison, probably.
Normally.
Did you send me a Madison recently?
Yeah, everyone loves Madison.
Green.
So yeah. It was Madison.
And the client threw a glass of wine over the.
I told. Yeah. And it bubbled on the top, right?
No. Well, I don't know what happened initially, but after a little while, it just disappeared.
Yeah, so that's got...
and the guy was like, this is amazing. He was like really worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, go and chuck a glass of wine over it now and try it.
Yeah.
And he did, and he was like, no, that's fine.
That's an example. It's got a stain-resistant finish on it, so it will just bubble on the top. Although, again, you don't necessarily need any sort of stain resistance on polyester fabrics, because polyester isn't designed to be cleaned really easily. In reality, it will be fine with just a cloth and soapy water. But I suppose clients want that extra security, that extra knowledge. So you've got to make it essentially bomb-proof. Not bomb-proof, because we can't protect against bombs. But hopefully, we'll let you know.
Don't say bombs. I'm going on a plane on Friday.
Interesting story about that. We, when there was those Salisbury poisonings. You remember the the poisonings in Salisbury. So they put a photo of the restaurant it happened in, and in the photo was one of our fabrics. And I was like, "Do we? Are we against nuclear waste? Can it protect against nuclear waste?" Yeah. So I don't know if that was the answer. I'm sure they removed that fabric.
Sunbury Fabrics.
I would
protecting against nuclear waste.
I would have advised them to remove that. Yeah. So that's a very important point. Any sort of stain resistance. Our sort of revolutionary one was our Aquaclean, which is one of these. The coolest thing about the Aquaclean was that the stain resistance is built into the yarn of the fabric. So the vast majority of our products that have the stain resistance, it's added after the fabric is made.
So the fabric is woven, and then the product is applied over the top of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas on Aquaclean, are you saying that the weave itself is treated?
Yeah, the yarn.
Before it's
the treatment, the technology is injected into the yarn in effect, and that's what's so revolutionary about it. And what's great about it, you only need to clean it with cloth and water. So it'll take out biro, it'll take out coffee, it'll take out ketchup, it'll even take out European Sharpie.
So I think the most famous brand of coating is Teflon.
Teflon, and Scotchguard. Scotchguard,
so how does that compare to those kind of things?
Aquaclean is the fact it's not a coating. That's the beauty of it. It's a,
so those Scotchguard and Teflon are coatings on
coatings on top. Yeah, which are great. So they perform brilliantly. I did them out better. It's part of the fabric. So whereas not now. Much more. More modern versions of these stuff last a lot longer. But the idea is the fabric, it won't wear off because it's part of the fabric. It is literally in the yarn of the fabric, and it's very green because you need to clean it with water. There's no other chemicals needed to clean it with. It takes out biro, which is really cool. So when we do exhibitions, you've seen my trick. You get people to draw their name on. Bring a sample, people write their name in biro, and we can take it out with the cloth and water. So it was a real revolutionary thing in the market. We launched it just before I started, but we were getting orders left, right, and centre. And even now, our Napa range, which I think
Napa's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone loves Napa. It's still our second or third bestseller, and it's been out for 10 years plus. It's just constantly, and that's 250,000 rubs actually. So
that's your faux leather, isn't it?
No, it's like a faux suede.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Can you
it's
see
like
it,
a bob. It's like a bobble effect. Where is it? There you go. I knew I'd seen it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful range.
I specify some of that on Forest Holidays products. Do you remember?
Yes, I do
Years
remember.
ago.
Yeah.
I know I went into a care home a few weeks ago, and they had it on everything. All the chairs, and it's a really durable fabric.
It will last forever. Well, not forever, but
It's really authentic as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's
the
got.
nice thing about, I think, the Sunbury range is that they're, on things like this faux suedes and the faux leathers, they're you can't. Really, you can't tell the difference, can you?
No. I mean, we do sell leather as well, but people don't. I mean, people just don't buy leather as much as they used to anyway. So that's where our faux leathers and our faux suedes come in a lot more.
And so on the Napa and some of your other products, so the Aquaclean isn't across the board on your range,
No,
is it?
we have 9 ranges where we have Aquaclean. There's more coming out. One's coming out very soon, then potentially 2 or 3 more coming out next year. No, it's not one, because it's one supplier. You never want to be tied to one supplier because it's always a risk for a business. You spread your risk really, and every supplier offers something different. So Aquaclean obviously is fantastic. They produce great products, and it's one of our better, probably mill we do the most with. But then we've got our Madison, where that mill we supply all of our recycled fabrics from.
I've written recycled.
We are bringing out a recycled Aquaclean soon as well. So watch this space. That should be cool.
Look, I put
I can see that.
Recycled on them, so I know.
We're going to get little tags soon, which will make it clearer that it's recycled. So that. So
surely just the colour of the holder. If you change that to a green or something.
So
it's
that's something we're going to look into to make it clearer what it is. So recycled products are becoming much more of a thing in the industry. I don't know if you get asked it by clients a lot.
Well, we touched on this a couple of weeks ago when we had Lewis in, didn't we, from Grower. He was talking about kind of cradle to cradle with the Grower product. It's important, I think, and more and more people are just becoming, very aware of it, as they should be. Yeah, absolutely.
So. So we only offer the recycled element right now. It's very difficult to have a recyclable contract fabric once you upholster it and it's put on the foam and all of that.
Yeah. Stuck with glue sometimes.
Yeah.
And the product's being treated.
Yeah.
There's that, I guess, to take into account.
So yes, exactly. I mean, we've tried to eliminate as many sort of negative elements of the fabric even with recycled. So it's collected from plastic bottles. Normally near ocean waste by a brand. It's a brand called Repreve. Repreve is a huge American brand. If you go on their website, you'll see their main market is clothing, but they also now ventured into sort of upholstery and curtaining fabric as well. And their clients are people like Nike, everyone. You probably have some clothing which is Repreve. And then so they collect it anyway. So it's turned into the polyester fabric that we then supply to you guys.
Repreve, do they collect stuff from the ocean?
If you go on their website, it's Repreve. It's around the ocean, around ocean waste. It's really, really cool. And actually on their website, you'll see they've got like a countdown of how many bottles they're recycling at one time. It's really, really cool. And then that's what you get out of our products. But then we've also gone that little bit step further. We've made sure the Crib 5 element of the fabric is halogen free. And halogen is like a chemical which generally has been used to make things Crib 5 because you can stick it on the fabric and it doesn't burn to 2,000 degrees. It's cheap, very, very good, and very, very obviously fire retardant, but it's not particularly good for the environment. So we've removed that, but we've still made it Crib 5. Our stain resistant treatment on it doesn't have any fluorofluorocarbons in it.
What is a fluorofluoride-carbon?
So it's like a colourless, it's a colourless chemical. It's not flammable, which is why again it's used on soil and stain treatments in fabric, but it's not very good for the environment. But it's very good. It's very quick. It's very reactive to taking out stains. So we've removed that, and we've still got the stain resistant finish on them. So that's where we're going, and we'll add it eventually to all of our other products as well. Okay. So that's the main thing. Recycled products at the moment are slightly more expensive because there's not the high demand for it as there is for normal ones. But I'd imagine in the next 5 to 10 years, recycled elements will be like what Crib 5 is now, or what 40,000 rubs is now. It will be a requirement in the industry. There has to be some sort of recycled element. There's no virgin yarn in your fabric, or not 100% virgin yarn. I'm sure there will be a requirement that's got to be 30 or 40% recycled.
And rightly so, I think.
As the world burns, we've got to do something, right?
Definitely.
We've got to. So we'll try and do our little steps. It's very difficult because then you don't always know what happens. I mean, for fabric suppliers, for furniture manufacturers, for designers, you don't know what's going to happen to the chairs in that restaurant or the headboards in that hotel after 5-6 years are the owners just going to get rid of it all and put it in a skip and send it to landfill? You sort of lose that control over it. So I guess there'll have to be bigger regulations, maybe on like the people with the real money, which are the owners, the people with the hotel owners and the restaurant owners, who will have to recycle things a lot better.
I think that there's a lot of trouble reusing old furniture and reusing, including the upholstery, even if the upholstery is
also
any good.
very expensive. It's very that's always the problem that comes across. People, even on the domestic side, you've got your old sofa. It's cheaper to bin it and go and buy a new one. So yeah, I won't go into our actual pricing is, but that saws down that velvet you were looking at. That's a decently priced velvet. It's what it is, but it's £6 a metre more than our Madison velvet.
Okay.
Which is our bestseller and not recycled. And we can offer Madison in a recycled element now for 300 metre minimums, but the price would then increase. But I think it's already sort of starting to merge, and there's not too much difference now between the old I think in 2 or 3 years I think it'll be negligible.
It'll be standard, won't it?
Yeah, more people will use it, so there's less expense buying the actual yarn for the mills and things like that.
I think that there is some onus on upholsterers to label the furniture really, really well in Crib 5, because I think that there's a labelling system in domestic where you have to have a label, don't you? So
you have to have
people in commercial don't necessarily have to do
that's
that.
a good point, actually.
And actually, if upholsterers and manufacturers were to put something permanent on the bottom of a chair, saying this is Crib 5,
I'm surprised there's not that requirement when you think it's got to be in a home.
But I've seen so much furniture in pubs and restaurants which I know are Crib 5, or they
of course it's. I know it's Crib 5 because I can see it's either our fabric or a competitor of ours fabric who only do Crib 5 as well. So you know it's Crib 5, but how does one actually know?
Actually, when you're recycling something, if you're selling chairs that are upholstered, you have to make sure that they are compliant. And if there's no label
it's tricky.
on the chair that's a permanent fixture, you don't know, you can't prove it, so you therefore have to reupholster it, and then you have to throw it away.
Absolutely.
So I think that there is an onus on upholsterers to make sure that things are labelled really well. So then if you have got a chair that's not worn out and it's the right colour, you don't have to reupholster it, and you can just use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just needed to put that point in.
No, I agree completely.
Really valid, I think.
Yeah, but no, you're right. It's budget still dictates everything, especially now, in fact, with the cost of living crisis and energy. Energy bills have dropped thankfully in the last few months, but generally energy bills, budgets are tighter than they were. Clients don't have the money to spend. Interest rates, things like that, they don't have the money to spend. They did. Well, I don't even know.
They've still got the same amount of money, but they haven't got
pre-war,
everything's gone up,
pre-COVID, pre everything. Before the world went crazy, so everything has changed. Our pricing structure has changed. Everything has risen. Our cheap fabric is now what our cheap costing fabric is now what our medium to high costing fabric used to be. Just is, and our supply. It's not just us. I speak to our competitors. We're all in the same boat. It is what it is. People are slowly accepting they've got to pay more now. They still get some people who don't understand the pricing, but that is what it is, I'm afraid.
I'm hoping it's going to level out now.
I think it is. So last year we had 4 price increases in a year. Normally we have 1 to 2 max. This year we've only had 1, and there doesn't seem to be any on the board just yet. So I hope so, because it's a nightmare, especially as someone trying to sell a fabric. I give a price, and then 2 or 3 months later that price is invalid. Where in the past we might have been able to maintain our previous price, whereas last year we just couldn't. If our suppliers putting their product price up 10-15%, we're not making any money if we don't then sell it on at the right price. Same as you guys though, with what you're charging for your design work. If you're everything's costing more.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot more.
So we're going to go for a little break now.
You can handle that now, that's fine.
See you after the break.
My big smart job is bloody driving.
Yeah.
Which my mileage, 85,000 miles I've done in my car.
I love driving.
We'll all be automated soon, won't it? will be driverless cars.
Oh my god, I can't wait
Yeah,
until
me
I
too.
can have a driverless car and do some work
Or
while
just
I'm in the
chill.
car. I feel like I'm wasting my time when I drive. I always get the train.
Also, it's
because
so tiring as well. Like concentrating on the driving. But once it becomes driverless, I think I'll be a while off.
It'd be like sitting on a train, wouldn't it?
Yeah, my car is in the motorway. Actually, can be almost driverless. I can put it in cruise control and I can put it in lane control.
What car
so it'll
have you
stay RAV4. So it'll stay in the lane. But if you take your hand off the wheel after like 3 or 4 seconds, it like has a shit fit.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing? So you got to like keep your
What's
hand.
a RAV4?
Toyota.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about driverless cars. I'm very old
Why?
school. I'm just really old
Did you
school.
know I did a speed awareness course recently, naughty drivers course, and they told us 97% or something ridiculously high like that of crashes are down to driver error.
Oh god,
Yeah.
when we get driverless.
So when you think about
cars,
that, how
much
many
safer.
so much safer, and you'll get to places quicker because generally traffic is caused by idiots, I would say.
Because there's crashes.
Yeah, because there's crashes. You don't agree?
I
You're against
disagree.
the new world, are you?
I am. Yeah, I am. I don't like it.
One thing I wouldn't do, I couldn't imagine getting on a pilotless plane. That would freak me out a bit.
Well,
Would
you
get
already
one?
do, really, because they've got
They,
an
I know,
autopilot.
I
They're
know,
sitting there having
I know,
coffee
but
most of the
they
time.
literally are. But there's like the comfort of knowing if shit hits the fan, they're there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not a great flyer,
no, I'm not a
which
great
is not
flyer.
great considering how much flying I do for my job.
So when I was
But-
when we went to France a couple of weeks ago with Thea, my daughter's 8.
Did you
and she's-
drive?
No, we
You
flew
flew, you did
and then
fly.
picked up a hire car at
Yeah.
the airport and drove. And she said to me on the flight, literally we're about to take off, and she went, "I think today's going to be the day." I was like,
What day?
"What day? For what?" She was like, "Where they have to use the slides." And I was like, "Thea, don't say shit like that." And I was like, "Well,
Bless
I
her.
mean, it is
Well,
Ryanair.
also she doesn't.
They'll
She
be
probably
fucking,
doesn't.
they charge for everything.
Kids-
Like if
yeah.
you have to get on the slide, they're charging you 50 quid per person
to save your
to
life.
Get out.
Yeah.
That's an extra.
Also, does she realise the slide doesn't go down like 35,000 feet?
And I'm not a good flyer, so I was like,
No, I'm
I
not.
managed to talk her down. It
I
was
had
fine.
a terrible when I went travelling before I joined Sunbury. I went backpacking for 3 or 4 months. I was flying to Australia, and we were flying. Stop was in Singapore, and we went through. It must have been a storm or something. It was got to be like 2 of the worst hours of my life. We were like banging, and it was just like
awful.
And I was on my own. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to die on my own,
actually
surrounded
think it's better when you're on
surrounded
your
by
own.
strangers. But I got there safe and sound.
You made it.
So
You
I was
made
obviously
it.
being very dramatic. So
I find it easier flying on my own because I'm like, what will be?
no,
will
I
be.
get really bored. I have to have something to distract me.
When I was in my 20s, we used to go to China and Asia a lot. And I used
Oh, is this
to
when you did that?
when I used to work for my dad.
Oh god.
And did I know you then?
No,
I knew
no,
your
you
dad.
knew my dad. You knew Ben as well, right?
And Ben,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ben, but you
Yeah.
didn't know me. No.
And
You used to go to China. Is that where you got most of your stuff?
most of the stuff came from
Really?
Asia.
Oh, I didn't know
we
that.
We did import from Italy and Romania as well, but a lot of it came from China.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was out there 2 or 3 times a year. But we used to do March. We used to do all the trade
Yeah, of
trade
course.
fairs,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we used to do every year 14 flights in 3 weeks. And
Jesus.
every single flight I got on, I went, oh, I'm upping the odds.
That,
numbers
the
game.
odds.
yeah.
And we used to get on China Air, which is a shit air. Like, have you ever been on China?
So no,
Oh
it's
my
funny
God,
story
it's
about
so
Australia. When I
scary.
went to Australia, so I went and met 2 of my friends who were travelling already. They'd been there for a year, and then 6 of our other friends all came out and met us for 3 weeks, and we all went up to the coast of Australia together,
that
which was a
sounds
really great
amazing.
trip. But they all flew China Southern, and they just said it was like flying Ryanair, 18 hours on Ryanair.
Oh no, I think
Yeah,
it's worse.
I flew Singapore Air, which was great.
Oh, amazing.
Not in economy, obviously, but yeah, it was still better than China Southern.
Oh man, the China Air though. Oh my
I'm
god,
told
we were
it's-
sat on a runway with all these Chinese people, and you know the culture in
It's funny, that.
Chinese. Genius. Actually, they were all English.
Yeah.
But the culture in Chinese is to be quite shouty. Like people get really shouty, and they're not necessarily being aggressive. They're just they're
No.
quite shouty. And,
I come from a shouty family. I'm
my
Jewish, so we also shout a lot.
And,
Similar culture, clearly.
But we were sat on this plane and we were on the runway for about 2 hours,
Ay, ay, ay.
and all of these these guys were getting really irate, and there was just like this, the noise level just was going up and up and up, and there was this like shitty plane that was all rickety, and it was like
it's not for
creaking,
me.
and me and my dad were sitting there going, oh my god, what's gonna happen?
And you've got 2 hours to think about what's going to happen.
Well, from like a 1 hour flight probably, wasn't it, or something?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember
trying to
being
such a big
stuck.
country. It's like, yeah.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Should we talk about fabric?
I don't know. I quite like the travelling vibe. It's a bit more interesting, isn't it? I mean, fabric's great. I can talk about fabric all day long, which I do clearly. But yeah. So I don't know. Trends. What have you guys, from a design perspective, noticed from trends in the market? Fabric trends, because interesting what we've picked up.
That's a question.
Yeah.
You didn't prepare us for that one.
I know. Well, I'm sort of reversing it.
Fabric trends. I'm stumped.
Yeah,
Because obviously velvet has been like back in for a very, very long time now. We sell so much velvet.
Yeah,
Just
I use a lot of velvet.
yeah, exactly. Plain velvet. But then boucle has been like the new sort of.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what boucle is.
So it's like
it's
a bobbly,
like
bobbly type.
It's quite retro.
It's a
isn't
scandal.
it?
It's like a scandal type
Like
thing.
that.
Yes,
Okay,
sort
yeah,
of, but
kind
not
of,
really.
a bit more than that.
That's a bit too smooth for. We've got
So
a
I need to
boucle.
put a link in the notes.
We've got a
on the
boucle.
show.
Put the link to our Leopold boucle.
Okay.
Which
collection.
So
is
we know
Leopold
what we're talking
boucle
about.
collection. It's a recycled boucle.
Oh,
Boucle.
nice.
It's cool, right?
How do you spell boucle?
Boucle.
E?
Yes. Tell my mother's an English teacher.
Oh, I hate autocorrect. Boucle.
Yeah.
Link in notes.
Link in the description.
Note to self.
Note to self.
Ask James.
Ask James. Order samples.
Get book.
Order fabric.
Specify.
Specify Sunbury. See, it rolls off the tongue.
So trends boucle.
Boucle's been, I mean, it's not just us. I mean, all of our competitors. I saw someone put on the other day on LinkedIn, I'm looking for a fabric company that doesn't have a new boucle, because we all have one. But it's the trend, and everyone wants one. So, and then it's about us trying to offer, slightly different colours to what our competitors offer, and them trying to do the same thing, and having the right stock and things like that. So yeah, trends is. It's always hard to follow a trend, because if you think you get on the trend can be done by the time you launch the product.
I was going to say, when you kind of asked that question, I was thinking, oh my God, Cheryl, like, if something's on trend, I try and avoid it.
Well, do you remember
at all costs?
So when
that's because you're a trendsetter.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Cheryl, the
you're designing
trendsetter.
it.
I think
Massive.
I try. If someone says, "Oh, I really want to,"
So like the big thing before I started at Sunbury, I remember it was just ending, because when I first started on the job, people asked me if we offered it. Was the hounds-tooth design.
Yeah.
That was I know it was massive before we started. We never offered it. And by the time within like 6 months to a year of me starting, no one was asking for it anymore. It like completely sort of like died a death. But for a time, it was like the next big thing. And then we had like the polka dot spots. Do you remember that? That was really in at one point. We had that all on Costa Coffee. But again, that's all sort of died a death now. It's hard with designs. Why we don't offer loads of patterns, because they're more expensive to produce. People generally will only use them once. And they're not. You don't get the volume you get out of them on planes.
Yeah.
So it's where you what you're sitting on there, that back of that chair. It's not ours. It's a competitor of ours. I won't say who it is, but I do know whose it is.
It looks a bit like your Kiko range.
Exactly. It looks like our Kiko range. That textured weave is very much in. We've got one of our recycled products like that called Zonda, which I think I showed you before. Very similar. That textured weave feels like the next bit is where people like to go, because they don't want completely plain, but they're scared of going for pattern. So I feel like
I think that the planes just have a bit more longevity, don't they?
You can
with anything.
A plain
that's
velvet.
pattern.
Also, I had someone at Big Cruise Line explaining to me why they like going for planes, because if they buy a plane from us for a ship for 3 or 4 years, and then they want to refurb it, part of it, and we don't have that plane anymore, they know we will either have an identical replacement or someone else will have something that's identical.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry then about refurbing the whole ship and costing fortunes.
Yeah.
So it's much safer. It's a much safer bet.
Patterns are more fashionable. So for example, I've just specified a plain on your velvet.
Yep, the source down. Yep.
A plain green, and then we've put a really beautiful like patterned.
Yeah, sure.
It's got loads of leaves and pigeons in it, and we've done that on the curtains and on the cushions. Yeah. So the curtains and the cushions can be whipped off in 2 or 3 years when that's not in fashion anymore, and that's what the client has asked for.
And it doesn't cost them a fortune to replace it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or like if you're doing it on chairs, for ours, if a chair breaks or 3 or 4 chairs break, and we don't have that plain fabric, if we don't have that plain fabric anymore, it's fine. We'll probably have something identical to it.
Or something that would complement
it. Something complements it. Whereas if you've done it all in patterns, you're sort of fucked because you've got to replace the whole thing with a brand new pattern, and everything's much more expensive.
And from a design,
so your client isn't happy with you either, I assume. Yeah. If you're costing them more money.
And from a design perspective, you would maybe do plain pattern, like pop of colour.
Yeah, pop of colour.
You wouldn't generally do.
No, exactly. Which is why we've also gone into
maximalism everywhere. Would you?
That's why we've also started offering our prints as well, because prints have that pattern and are much cheaper to produce than cut velvet patterns. Because it's just a general print on a base cloth. And if you've seen that, we've collaborated with a textile designer called Amelia Graham.
Ooh.
So we've launched 2 ranges.
Link in notes.
LinkedIn. Amelia's stuff is really cool. She obviously has our fabrics, but she does scarves and things like that, and she's really nice as well.
What's her name?
Amelia Graham. She's based in Brighton. Amelia. She is. So we've collaborated on 2 products with her. One was called Perception, which we launched annoyingly January 2020. So it had a really good initial reception, and then COVID sort of just killed that vibe. But it's still doing really well. It's been specced on some really cool jobs. And then we launched the second one last year, which was in a recycled base cloth called Cascade. The cool thing is now we can print any design on a recycled base cloth, which is really, really cool. It gives good options for big projects, because it's about 100 metre minimums.
So if we wanted to design a fabric...
You could print it for us. We can print it as long as you provide... We always say you've got to provide the artwork as designers. We don't do the artwork, we're not artists. And it's about 100 metre minimums. So it's not huge. So obviously, if you're just doing it for a back of a chair, it wouldn't be ideal. But if you want to do like a hotel curtains, or like in bedroom chairs on a hotel, that's plenty. For it as an example.
So on the stuff that on the printed patterns that you do, I don't know whether people want to know about this, but I'm intrigued to know whether So you said there was a fabric called. Did you say it was called not Inception?
Perception. Inception's a good name, though. I might suggest that in our next creative meeting.
Perception. So you come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And then do you pitch that to
designers,
or does she come to you?
So our design director, a guy called Ben Earing. Have you met Ben Earing?
Is Ben your cousin?
No. Ben Lewis is my cousin. We've got another Ben,
confusing.
who is the design director. And his dad was a former sales director at Sunbury, but he's not a Lewis. But he's honorary.
Oh my God, he's not Lewis.
He's an honorary Lewis. He's probably the most important person in the business, to be fair. So he's the one that deals.
Don't tell your dad that.
No, my dad agrees. he deals with all the mills. He's the one that's got all. If I've ever got an issue with the fabric, I'll call him. He's got the knowledge that no one else. He's worked at mills before as well, so he's got like encyclopedic knowledge of fabrics. So he found him and Amelia sort of connected on LinkedIn, and they met, and they're going through some conceptions of designs, and that's how that got produced.
Okay.
And then we spoke to our supplier who can do a base cloth in that, and then we print the design onto that base cloth. Okay. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool. Lots of people are doing it now. It's a good version of a good way of getting colour, getting design without it being too costly to us or the end user as well. Yeah. It's significantly cheaper than cut velvet, for example. And we don't have to stock loads of it. Then you don't get left with loads of stock once it goes out of trend, which is always a problem. But it's the risk everyone takes, I guess. So yeah, that's a pretty.
But interesting to know that from a design point of view, if there was a design, if there was an interior designer working on a project that needed something that was completely bespoke, if they were in a position to either design it themselves or have someone. As an artist do the design for them, that they can approach you guys at Sunbury and say, this is what we need, these are the quantities that we need, is it something that you're interested in?
The only thing we don't do is the design ourselves, because we're not designers. But if they gave us the design in an image, in a high resolution image, there's no reason why we can't do it.
Okay. I always think when you're doing, because we do branding and interior design, I always think when you're doing branding, it's really, if you're doing branding for a hotel or for a hospitality venue, it's always really cool to have a pattern.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And as part of the branding, I always offer that, because because having that pattern,
It makes it pop.
yeah,
Yeah.
it gives you brand consistency,
And it elevates the brand, doesn't
I
it?
agree.
I mean, it's definitely high end, isn't it? It's kind of the luxury end of the market to be able to integrate that branding somehow into, not just from a colour perspective, but if there's, you can be really clever with it though. It doesn't have to be.
I don't think it needs to be expensive though, because it doesn't have to be high end. It just needs. It's a bit like Costa. Costa have got their. I mean, they've got their brand sorted. Their interior fit outs aren't that expensive.
But Costa are
just
constantly
got all the right
evolving.
things in the right place.
And they're constantly changing how, because we've been on Costa projects for like 10, 15 years, and sometimes we get more out of them than not, and then other times we get loads out of them. But they're constantly changing how they do things because they know they've got to evolve as a brand.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
But
They obviously they're owned by Coca-Cola now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got bought out.
Did the whole of Whitbreads get bought out by?
No, they just bought part of Costa. They bought Costa from Whitbreads, but no, Whitbreads still own like Premier Inn and things like that. But yeah, they bought. I think Whitbreads bought them. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can look it up online, listeners. So I think they bought it for like 17 million or something, and they sold it to Coke for like $4 billion. Like something like.
But they did so much though, because they went into all the Costa. In the garages,
yeah,
got those Costa Expresses
yes,
and stuff.
yeah. I mean, it's genius. It's a great idea, and it's I would say it's a bigger brand in the UK than Starbucks is probably.
Yeah.
I mean, Starbucks is like the go-to brand in America, but here, you've got Costa, you've got Pret as well, which is obviously more of a city type coffee place. But your coffee here is massive, right? It's we were talking about before.
Yeah.
There's so many. You've got Costa. I mean, the main two are like Costa, Pret. Then you've also got Costa, Pret, Starbucks. Then you've got like Nero, which is really nice.
Nero's pretty big,
I like
isn't it?
Nero. Nero's really good. Then you've got like Tim Hortons, which is getting bigger.
Yeah.
That's
It's not
like
coffee though, is it?
yeah, it's coffee. It's like the Starbucks of Canada almost.
Oh.
Yeah. So we've got quite a bit of fabric in that as well, in the UK, but it's massive. So that's coming. That's huge. And then you've got smaller ones, as we were saying, in the UK,
Yeah.
but obviously massive in America and things like that. Then you get Dunkin' Donuts here, I think. You had that in America?
Oh my god!
Banging that.
We've got Krispy Kremes.
Yeah.
But they're not drive-through.
They're not drive. No, there is one. There is one
there?
Krispy Kreme. Yeah. There's one Krispy Kreme drive-through in Enfield, not quite far for you. It's not far for me at all. It's like 10 minutes from my
Too
house.
close.
You've not been in a while. I might suggest it to her. It's about 10 minutes from my house. But that's the next one. We'll pitch it. We'll pitch it to Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Get them over here.
We've got a Wendy's owned in Colchester. Where we
Do
are.
you? Oh.
Apparently, everyone keeps talking about it. Oh, we took the kids to Wendy's and there was a massive queue. It opened in the summer holidays.
Yeah, there was a massive thing, I think, in the paper. Someone was telling me the other day about, everyone's up in arms about the fact that it's all cashless.
Oh.
Rightly so, people.
Do you know what? The banks are just rinsing us, aren't they? All the money is just going to the banks. I'm not even going to get on my.
I don't really carry cash though.
I do.
Do you?
Can't keep using it. It'll go. It will
but
go. No.
I find it annoying. I prefer just go.
Yeah, but every time you do a transaction, 2.5% of that transaction
I
goes
know.
to the bank.
I know, but
And that money is reduced, and then that person's going to pay someone else in something, and then 2.5% of that. By the time you've had 10 transactions, all the money's gone to the bank.
I know. It's just convenient though.
You know, right?
It's control though as well. Don't forget.
Massive control. Don't get us on our soapbox.
Maybe we'll edit this
God.
now. Head down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Anarchy, let's go!
Yeah. The Illuminati. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about fabrics.
So what else can we?
We accept
designers
our
about
fabrics
that?
in cash, by the way.
we take cash. We take whatever you
People
want.
don't really buy us in cash, actually.
So what else can you educate us about fabrics? Oh, trends. So I was going to say something about trends. So going back to trends, I think the sustainability has got a massive thing.
It's like
and like green and natural fibres, and I don't think that's going anywhere fast.
It's
Like
here to stay. We've got to. The world is like everyone. You just have to look out the window. Not this summer actually, but generally, the world is burning, and we've got to. I suppose at the end of the day, it's not really up to we can only do so much as people, but when you're supplying, and I think there's a responsibility to start to supply things that has a sustainable element into it. Absolutely.
The difficulty at the moment, though, with all of that is the fact that it's all people have the choice.
Right, exactly.
They have the choice to either be.
I would say I think most people do try and make some effort. Some effort. I don't think there's very few people who are completely like, fuck it, I don't care. Basically, I think most people, have a recycling bin at home, for example, basics, and so then that's why I think it then translates into the working environment. A designer generally will like to look for recycled, something that's got a sustainable story to it. It's also a nice story to sort of, when you're selling it in, it looks good and it sounds nice.
I think that the responsibility of designers is, and I said this I think in the Cradle to Cradle one, is the designers have a responsibility to specify something that is and make sure that they're offering a sustainable choice. Even if it's more expensive, you go to the client, you say, this is the sustainable option which I would prefer you to use, and this is one that's cheaper if you need to work on the budget. Or
maybe a mixture of the two. Exactly. Like that's always maybe a good way to go. But no, I agree. I mean, I noticed when we first launched the recycled products, we had a good reception, but there were some people like, meh, whatever. But now, we get asked, is it recycled? And I'm showing the fabric, and they're like, oh, it's recycled, really? That's great. It's good to know. And it's just becoming such a thing now. It's so important.
But in terms of trend, the actual perception that it's recycled, that whole, I think that kind of natural looking,
absolutely,
it doesn't necessarily mean that it is recycled. Hopefully it is. But
do you mean in colours? So like soft, like greens and and
greens
things like
and natural fibres and things like that are all really on trend at the moment.
It's interesting. Yeah, I agree actually. I mean the problem with natural fibres are so expensive. Like wool is obviously very, it's so natural, but it's a fortune. We wouldn't be able to, if we launched a wool range, we'd sell it in some elements, we would sell it, but not in any great quantities, because it's so expensive. We'd have to sell it at significantly more than what we sell any product for, even our most expensive products, and it's not really the market we work in. The high-end residential market, I think, has got natural products have got a huge future, like huge. People, especially if you're designing a house in like Chelsea or even somewhere near, like in sort of the richer parts of the home counties, that's where natural fibres have a huge part to play.
Again, it's cost, isn't it?
It's cost. But I suppose if you've got a £5-10 million house, you can definitely afford to pay an extra £20 a metre on your sofa. I think.
Oh God, yeah.
So when I sell all my fabric, and I'm designing my multi-million-pound home, and I got you girls designing it for me.
Good man.
We'll do it. Yeah.
The other thing about trends is which we touched on when we were talking about colour, the fact that and Cheryl, you sort of said, I don't like it when it's a trend. Actually, when you're designing, you shouldn't really be looking at a trend. You should be looking at what are you trying to achieve. If what you're trying to do is attract all the people who liked to be trendy. Is that a word? I'm old saying trendy.
On trend.
On trend.
My grandma used to say that.
When you're trendy.
Trendy. We're going up north now, haven't we?
But in terms of, you've got to look at the market that you're designing for, or the person that you're designing for, and tap into that, not into the trend. Is that where you were going with that earlier? Because you don't.
But like, do you when you're designing, do you follow like colour of the year? The Pantone of their colour.
No. Like honestly, a massive anarchist over here. It's awful. It's not awful. Actually.
It's not. No. What I find interesting is we don't get affected by the colour of the year too much, because hospitality isn't as influenced as other markets are. But it is funny that it's decided by a group of people what the colour of the year is. Like, but why? Why is it the colour of the year?
We were talking about this when we were discussing psychology of colour, and we were, when we've had discussions about it after we spoke to Karen, and what came out of that conversation was that actually, like, colour of the year, whilst it's great, that's not what it should be about. And I think that's probably why I try and, if there's something on trend, and it's very much on trend, I'm very conscious as a designer that trend has got to me at a point.
And it's got a shelf life.
Absolutely. So actually, if the client comes to me and says, I've got a vision in mind of what I want to try and create, and I really love, for example, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of
antlers.
No, I'm just thinking about something that would be really on trend.
Necklace.
Boucle, for example. So if they were like, I love the boucle, and I kind of want to centre it around that, or those kind of textures, I'd be thinking, well, Boucle's very on trend now, but that's, you know...
The only thing about Boucle is it's plain, right?
Yeah.
So it's got more of a shelf life than a particular type of pattern has, like a hound's-tooth, dog's tooth, I should say, or like a polka dot or something like that, or herringbone, which herringbone has been going for quite a while, but...
Can I just ask?
Go on.
Sorry to change the subject.
You can change much.
Houndstooth, dogtooth. Why?
Well, I don't know why.
Why
I mean, again,
do they call it dogtooth, houndstooth? And was it first houndstooth or first dogtooth?
Ooh, I don't know. A bit of research here, so you get all sorts of knowledge.
Sorry.
They say learn something new every day.
You then.
No, it's fine. Houndstooth.
Dogtooth. Houndstooth design.
I've got I can't.
Yeah, what came first, right?
We'll have to come back to that.
We'll put that in the notes, people.
I think, like, from a trend point of view, for me anyway, as a designer, I'm constantly trying to push the boundaries, and I'm constantly trying to think outside the box. And, you know, maybe I'm playing kind of devil's advocate a little bit. So if someone comes to me and says, this is what I want to try, as a vision, I won't just do as I'm told. I'm not going to just take their vision and say, okay, well, that's what I'm going to design. I'll be like, well, actually, have you thought about... Like, there's so much more to it than that. Have you thought about the context of the building, the context of your brand, the context of your location, of everything?
Psychology.
It's interesting when you say think outside the box, because we tried to, but we can't be too different as fabric suppliers, because if you launch something that is very Marmitey, you can be left with quite a lot of stock that people hate.
But it can
also get huge, and that is that gamble. That is that gamble you take. So it is interesting that I know you hear from designers, we want fabric suppliers, we want you guys to do something different. We're like, I know, but there's a reason we don't all do loads of different stuff, because we've all tried it in the past, and we've had stuff that's worked and hasn't worked, same as a lot of our competitors. But the stuff that hasn't worked is it's really shit, because you're left with
expensive,
very expensive mistakes. So you can't, and the safer bet is always planes and textured planes. It's always going to be, and that's always what our volume will be. Yeah. But I get from you guys, it's pretty boring.
No, there's a place for it, without a shadow of a doubt.
It's always the base of my design. Is I always go to your books first.
Start with your planes and then work your way out.
Yeah.
Sensible.
Should we have a little break?
Let's have a little break.
See you in a minute.
I feel like I'm going to get a reputation on this podcast of being literally the one that's like, no.
Wait till we get onto your conspiracy theories.
Flat Earth
Flat
theories.
Earth thing, yeah.
No, it's definitely not round.
No, it's all made up from the sky.
I think that's why I asked you to help me.
Oh, God.
Because it's just like that challenge.
Polarising opinions.
Constantly.
I like that.
It's important.
It's not. It's really fucking
See, I'm the opposite to you. If someone said to me, I need Boucle, it's going in. Yeah. Somewhere.
But that's good.
But
I think there's a place for both of that.
Yeah.
I genuinely do. I think there's a place for the... the tradition, and then there's like...
I'm looking at it and being like, that's why Hayley's got loads of work on. I'm like, right, I've got these 2 projects that I'm working on at the moment.
No. Not at all. There's a place for both. I agree completely.
I wouldn't want to change.
So I'd imagine...
Please don't change.
I was about to say, if you're a creative person, you can't really make something you're not passionate about, I'd imagine. Whereas, I can sell, I guess, if a product I don't like, or I don't think will do well, I still sell it in the same way I'd sell a really good product, I guess. But if you're creative,
I'm not like that.
but you're creative, it's different. I mean, there is obviously, if I really like a product and I think it's going to do really well, I guess it comes across that I really like it a lot more than if I didn't like it. But I like all of our products.
I used to sell shirts when I was at college. I used to work in Bacchus Menswear. I used to absolutely love it.
What, in Colchester?
Yeah.
Still there?
Yeah, I know.
Jeez,
that was like 20
years
ago. No, it was
That's
25 years ago. Oh my God, I'm so old.
What was it? Was it like a high-end store?
It was like it's
like
an
independent menswear, wasn't it?
And it's still there. It's quite rare, actually, that these like independent shops are still there. That's cool.
And we used to, and they taught me how to sell, and it was brilliant because I used to like get men dressed, and I used to be like,
your dream, right?
I'm not sure about that. I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, but she sees them get undressed and then dressed.
But But all of the shirts in the shop, my point was...
that you got to see the men undressed and dress them back up.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Would you like me to help you with that?
You got a problem taking that shirt off with me? I'll undo your cufflinks for you. Yeah.
But all the shirts in the shop that I liked would sell out like ridiculously quickly because
yeah.
I'd be like, look at this one, it's amazing. And and then all the ones I didn't like never used to sell, so they used to get me involved. I was their best Saturday girl.
Maybe come work for us.
Still to date, I go in there and they go, yeah, this is Hayley, she was our best ever Saturday girl.
Maybe you can come take my job. Sell better than me.
I like my job.
Yeah, I like my job. It's a good industry to work in, isn't it?
Oh yes, we were going to talk about the industry, weren't we?
Segue. You like that segue? It's a good segue. Because you worked in it for a long time, haven't you? But it's a very sociable industry. There's lots of networking events. It's good fun, and the type of selling you do isn't hard selling, which is because I did recruitment before this, which was on the phone and blah blah blah.
That was good training for you.
Very good training, very very good training, but it was not fun. It's not enjoyable in the way that this is a fun, social industry. You've got all your networking events, you can meet people and
BCFA event.
It's actually not called the BCFA anymore.
Oh no, it's not.
It's called the CIUK, Commercial Interiors UK.
I can't get my head around that.
Yeah, they decided to rebrand. I guess British Contract Furniture Association sounds a bit stuffy. So Commercial Interiors UK is a little bit modern.
Yeah.
And it involves like commercial.
It is
well.
what it is.
It is what it is, and it does sound a bit more modern. And it's got a cool like branding logo and things like that. So that's what I've done for it. But yeah, we have the industry luncheon. We have the barbecue, which is fun. Lots of drinking, which I like. At these events, it's really good fun. Yeah, it's good. It's you always meet different people as well. And we have it's a creative industry, so it's not stuffy. Which is always a problem, I think. If you, I'd hate to work in like a corporate world or something like that.
I love getting into the room with all the designers and like the
gossiping,
BCFA, the
CIUK,
events are awesome because there's so many designers and everyone's so flamboyant and everyone's kind of like.
And then from a networking, like from our point, a networking perspective, it's great because you drink and you talk to people. It's so casual. It's a good way of talking to people in like a non-work environment. I think that's quite important.
Yeah.
When I don't know if you when you have people selling to you, you don't want people being too strong, coming on too strong with the selling, do you?
No. I've got someone ringing me every couple of weeks at the moment, and you're just like, just no.
I don't think that people still do behave like that from a sales point of view. That it's it's
all
kind
about
of moved a lot.
No, like it's about like you do have to be persistent because. As a salesperson, you can't not be persistent. But
remember me.
Things like
that.
There's a line between being persistent
and annoying.
Yeah, and it's really hard not to. It's really hard not to cross it because you don't want people to forget you. So there are a couple of designers I work with who don't mind that I call them all the time because they know they're like, yeah, I'm useless. Just keep calling me and I'll answer eventually and we'll meet.
Yeah.
Which is fine. So I'll keep doing that. But then there's others where you can't call too much.
Yeah.
Like you can't just drive them mad, and that's fine. And it isn't that. You're right. It's not that type of industry where it's like
not hard
double
sell,
glazing or anything like that. Interesting. Working in the States, they love British salespeople because we are much more like Americans are so like, hey man, it's it's so over the top. Whereas we like talk to them,
educate them,
or just talk to them like people. We have conversations with them, and it's much more relaxed. Whereas these
people buy from people, don't they?
They do. That's what I was taught in recruitment. I had this boss who was very David Brent-esque.
Oh.
But that was actually one of the first things he said to me, people buy from people. And it is very true. Because like we sell fabric, which is lovely, but we've got there's like 6 of our competitors who sell basically the same fabric, buy it from the same people we do, and it's about how the relationships you build to sell that.
And I think as a designer, you have to be, especially if you're freelance, you have to be a salesperson.
I think everyone has to sell in their job.
Because you have to get the work, and then you have to sell your design.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you and I, Cheryl, both had sales jobs, haven't we? And I think that's done us so.
But even if you work in like a big one of the big global design practices, you still have to be selling. You still have to sell your designs to your bosses, or the bosses then have to sell it to the corporation.
If you're not confident,
you've got to be confident in what you're making.
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't present it properly, then you don't sell it properly, then you don't. No one's going to believe you if you don't believe yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree. You have to, sell yourself, and then the product will follow. And as the product is not very good, then you're a bit fucked. It's always good. Our products are always good, so it's fine. You like our product, right?
Love your product. I've been working with you for a long time.
Long time.
22 many years. 22 years.
22
oh my God,
years.
I'm so old.
Do you know how old I was then?
Don't go down that road.
Go on, tell me.
10.
Fuck.
I'm 32. Yeah. So when I started in 2016. Oh my God, so that was 7 years ago. Yeah, I was 25. Fresh. Yeah.
Fresh as daisy.
Slightly more hair. Receded a bit now. All that driving.
Well, thank you very, very much,
Thank
James,
you for having me. I really enjoyed that.
Educating us.
That's all right. What are you guys up to the weekend?
I'm getting ready to go on holiday next week.
Oh, you're away next week, aren't you? I am at a music festival. If it doesn't chuck it down with rain.
Tomorrow's meant to.
Yeah, I think I'll do that on Sunday.
Sunday's meant to be nice.
Yeah. So do that on Sunday.
Get your wellies out.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm going to my friends tomorrow night, and meeting my mate's new baby, and then I'm playing golf, and then I'm out with my wife on Sunday.
Oh, nice, busy weekend.
Busy, relaxing, nice though.
Yeah.
Busy, nice. Yeah.
We're going to sign off now.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
hope
you.
everyone
Thanks for
heard-
having me on.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Really enjoyed it. Ciao.
Ciao. Well, that was fun with James.
Yeah, it's so good to see him. So good to see him. And lots of interesting information in there, I thought.
Yeah, I think we put the world to rights a little bit. I'm not sure if we talked about fabric the whole time, but then we didn't talk about cradle to cradle with Lewis last time. The whole time either.
No, exactly.
In terms of upholstery fabrics, do you have any tips for designers or any favourites? Do you have any favourites of upholstery fabrics that you like to use? Obviously, Sunbury Fabrics, Sunbury Design, even.
I think it really, as we touched on in the in the discussions that we just had with James, I think it's really important that what you're selecting is specific to the project that you're working on. So whilst I would naturally gravitate towards natural fibres, natural textures, natural neutral colours, or really muted tones, just because that's what I feel quite comfortable with from a design point of view. But it depends on the project, doesn't it? It completely depends on the project.
I think it's really important. One of the things that I really wanted to get across was it's really important to make sure that it's suitable. Like in terms of Martindale rub tests, make sure that you've got the right fire retardancy. And in terms of if you're designing a restaurant or a pub, or you're doing something commercial, it's got to be Crib 5. Otherwise, you're not complying.
Yeah. I think also though, excuse me. I think also, whilst obviously James was talking about very much the kind of commercial side of things and the commercial side of the business, and the requirements from a commercial point of view. There is no reason why you can't replicate that in a residential project that you're working on. But it's important to think about those considerations, because if you're doing a residential project, and you're doing a new build, or you're refurbing, or you're extending, and you're putting product in there that you want it to last, don't you? You don't want to be. Well, hopefully you don't want to be in a situation where you've paid a lot of money for a sofa, and then the sofa is 3 years down the line it needs changing. So I think it's important from both commercial and residential point of view that kind of stuff's considered, really. But
I suppose I'm thinking if you had a bit of fixed seating in a kitchen where they had 7 kids in the house, you would put a commercial fabric in there, wouldn't you? You'd put
and
really
actually
tough faux leather or something.
It's funny because I did a few years back for a friend of mine, helped her out with her kitchen layout, and we did a curved bench seat on the end of the island with a round table in it. And we specified one of Sunbury's fabrics. Alan did it for us. And we specified a Sunbury fabric for that reason. And also I think it had the oh God, I've completely forgotten what it was called. Not Scotchguard.
Teflon.
Aquaclean. And it got the Aquaclean treatment in it. I said to her, we need to look at that, because it's right at the end of the island. You're using it day in, day out. You don't want to be
you know, I'm having to deal with stains and stuff on it. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I've known James and his family for a long time, and they're really lovely people, and they're just easy to work with. That's why
Yeah,
I did come on the
definitely.
podcast, because he's just really cool.
I think that makes a massive difference, doesn't it, when you're, you know, dealing with a company that you know very well, and you know that they say what they, oh my God, they do what they say they're going to do. And they're just easy to work with. That's kind of all we want, isn't it, from a design, you know, as a designer, is just to work with good people.
Samples from them, they do it quick, and they just move. And they keep a load of stock.
Yeah. And their range is huge, isn't it? I mean, it's absolutely huge.
And I think one of the things I love about them is that I can trust that all of it is commercial.
Yeah.
So if I need to go, if I'm doing a commercial project, I need it to be tough. I know that I don't even need to think about it. When I'm looking at Sunbury Fabrics.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're all Crib 5 and they're all really tough.
Yeah.
So whereas a lot of fabric companies do both, don't they? They do commercial and resi.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes your job a little bit harder to kind of filter out the stuff and make sure what you're specifying is, you know, is suitable for the project you're working on. But yeah, no, it was cool. It was really good to catch up with him.
Yeah. If you like this episode, please like, share, and leave us a review. We're on Facebook and Instagram, interiordesign.podcast.
We really do value your feedback. So if you guys have any ideas on what you'd like to hear us talk about, or anyone that you'd like us to interview, then please do get in touch and we'll see what we can do.